This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.
Welcome back. Joe Satriani joins us here on Q104.3's Out of the Box. He's got a great new album called Shapeshifting. It is out now, and he's on tour, hopefully, one day. All the info, satriani.com, coming to us live via audio and video link from Casa Satriani, I think, right, Joe? Where are you? You're home now, or you're at your studio? Where are you?
Yeah, both. First of all, thank you. It's so great to see you, to hear your voice, to see that you're thriving, you're doing well. And like you, I'm sheltered, right? So
yeah,
this is, we were talking a little bit how we had to sort of clean up our caves a little bit.
Yes, the man caves. Yours looks really nice. For people on the radio, I'm going to describe it. Some beautiful Ibanez guitars, multicolors, got some really cool guitar straps. You got a cool rug. But yeah, when we do these interviews, you really have to sort of step up your game and maybe clean your house and clean your apartment so that people don't see what a slob I really am in general.
I can't imagine that you're ever like that. You're always impeccable whenever we get together. And so you don't have to worry about that. But I certainly, my creative space down here in the basement is filled with, straps that are in the middle of getting done. I've got prototypes like right here.
Yeah.
Just designs the artwork on the straps, and the good people at Dario out there on the island, not far from you guys.
Yes.
They're all together for us.
I heard Dario's making masks.
They are. Isn't that great?
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's mention the Marshal Heads in the back there, too. We got to talk about them, too.
I know, only two. There's a pack over here off camera. But, usually there's maybe 10 heads in here, a couple of bottoms. And there's cables everywhere and pedals, and usually people just stand at the door and they look in and they go, well, there's no room for me. But, I find that there's a sweet spot in a non-professional room that everybody sort of creates, and everything, hard drives, Pro Tools, everything's in reach, keyboards, there's a keyboard here. You can't see it, but it's right here.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago when I was rehearsing for the tour, this place was crazy. It was just maybe 20 guitars as I was trying to figure out which ones to bring on tour. But then once we had to postpone stuff, I had to clean stuff out, and I thought, okay, maybe.
Well, that's what happens. We have all this free time now, right? I mean,
yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. You're doing okay. Your family is doing okay. Everyone's healthy and everything's good?
Yes. Thank you very much. We're very fortunate. My family out here, West Coast and on the East Coast, relatives outside of Milan and Como, they're also doing well. So we're thankful that we're weathering the storm here.
Is this the longest you have been at home that you can remember?
No, as a matter of fact,
I know you take breaks in between tours and everything, but
yeah, we do. I think in the ancient history, records maybe didn't and tours were a bit more stretched, and so, you'd spend a year making a record, and it would come out, and you'd wait 4 or 5 months before you went on tour. And then with file sharing coming, end of the 90s, everything got kind of compressed, and we started really touring like the week the record came out, and we stayed on this really tight schedule. So it turned out, I think I analyzed it, that it was like 6 months home, and 6 months on tour if you averaged it out. But basically, about a year to 2 years on tour, followed by about 6 months at home. That's kind of like how it works out.
And I was thinking of that because in 1987, when Surfing with the Alien came out, if they had a pandemic then, you wouldn't have been able to release the album.
Yeah,
but now you can.
We're so fortunate, my little team, that besides the regular things that happened in life before COVID-19, that we were able to get through all of that normal silly stuff that happens in life, little roadblocks. We recorded an album right before Christmas, finished it, had it mastered, I think January 1st. It got to Sony Legacy. All the parts were there. Everything was ready. We did the video we did all the photos, everything was done, and then all of a sudden lockdown. So at least we have all of the parts together exactly the way we wanted it to look and sound like, and so we're able to release it to the fans, which is...
That's amazing that you got all that done, ready to go, and like it sounds like you were just waiting to go on tour.
We were just days away actually from rehearsing together, getting everyone flying in. I've got a keyboard player, Ray Thistlethwaite, who is a native of Australia, and he was actually driving to the airport, and I'm on the phone with him, and we're trying to figure out if he's going to get quarantined or not. And I have two guys in LA, Kenny Aronoff, amazing drummer, and Brian Beller, bassist extraordinaire, out there high in the high desert, waiting to find out if he can get in his car and drive downtown. It was hour to hour, then minute to minute, and then finally, with all of our partners in Europe, we were finally allowed to announce that we were postponing the tour. Just think about it, folks. I had to shell out all that cash for the airline tickets for everybody for the whole tour of the year. And then when we went to cancel, of course, the airlines were like, well, too bad, that's too bad for you, Joe. And so that took quite a while. And my team had to kind of talk the airlines, back into reality. Like, this is a global pandemic and you guys got to, cut us some slack here. We're going to go on tour eventually.
And they're getting bailed out by our tax dollars. So come on now.
It's funny, I've heard the current administration talk about bailing out businesses and everything. They've never once talked about instrumental rock guitarists. So I'm looking for the check that came in the mail.
Yeah, check that mailbox every morning.
No, as usual, musicians are on their own. And but the good thing is that I've had this relationship with promoters around the world for over 3 decades. Same people that I've dealt with, wonderful music lovers, smart promoters, and they're the ones who take the risk every time I go on tour to bring me over and put up tickets, rent a venue. But when you think about it, there's a lot of risk that is being taken by not only the musicians, obviously, and the record companies, but the individual promoters in each town or country, territory, and then the venue owners. They have to decide whether they want Jonathan or Joe, to rent the venue that night. How much more business are they going to do? And they have employees, and it's, it comes down to it. It's like we're all in it together. And but there was a rub there where some countries didn't want to say that this was a catastrophe and that everybody had to cut each other a lot of slack to be able to back out of commitments. And so we had to wait for all of the territories to figure out a way to, shake hands and say, let's postpone this tour, but let's truly rebook it for 12 months from now. And so that's what we did with the European tour.
Well, the way you describe it, it's like people don't realize how much of a domino effect it really is.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it just goes on and on. I mean, from you down to the person buying the ticket, there's so many things happening in between that affect everybody financially, emotionally, personally, whatever. Yeah. It's really incredible. And that's just not in our country. It's like you said, in Europe and all the other territories you were supposed to play. So I guess right now, a year from now looks realistic for your tour.
I certainly hope so. I know that we have made those plans. We've made those commitments, I should say, with the promoters and the venues. And, I feel good that there's the medical community out there is going to figure out a way around this. And so there'll be a breakthrough. The human ingenuity will prevail eventually. But we just have to help each other out in the meantime. I mean, it's really neighbor to neighbor at this point. And so I'm just stepping in line like everybody else and just making sure I can do my part.
Yeah, you got to do it. I, aside from the cleaning up in your house and your studio, I noticed that you've been posting some really kind of cool photos. I saw one, I believe it was you and Mick Jagger rehearsing in Australia. That was on your Twitter feed, I guess, a few days ago.
That was actually New York City.
That was actually New York City.
Yeah, yeah.
Was that what venue was that?
That would have been SIR downtown. Did they have a SIR like in the Village?
Yeah, the 20s, I think. Something like, yeah.
And yeah, that would have been like February of '88. I just started touring as a solo artist for the first time in my life, and after 3 weeks, I got the audition to join Mick's band. Passed it, and then suddenly my tour was canceled, and there I was staying at the Mayfair Hotel, I think, by the park. And Mayflower, that's right, yeah. Mayflower.
No longer there, unfortunately.
Is that right? I got to tell you, it was what a trip that was, because, you know, I grew up in New York, and my view of New York was where my father grew up, where my relatives were in Spanish Harlem up on 104th Street, and the museums and then all the dingy clubs I played. I mean, it was a different view of New York City that I had. I loved it, but I just got into trouble there, and it was fun, but it was sort of down and dirty, you know. And then all of a sudden, I'm in New York City. I'm staying at the Mayflower. Everywhere I go, it's a red carpet. I'm hanging out with Mick and the guys in the band, and it was like, wow, this is the other New York City, the one I never got to see when I was growing up. And I learned to appreciate the city a little bit more, but was also, it was a warning about how, you know, different kinds of life can exist at the same time in the same city for different people. But it was so much fun. And but that's where that picture was. Yeah. I'm holding Larry DiMarzio's guitar. For people who don't know, Larry invented the DiMarzio pickup and is the owner of DiMarzio. What are they called? DiMarzio. I think they're just called DiMarzio.
DiMarzio, yeah.
Wow. And he lent me that Strat because I didn't really have a guitar that was going to work for that gig at the time. So yeah, that photo you're talking about, I'm holding it's red, right? It's
a red guitar, yeah.
Yeah.
Your hair is long.
Yes. Long hair. Still wearing the same black t-shirts, but
you got to wear the black t-shirt. And then you posted a photo of Sammy Hagar, and you said something like, "Yeah, I'm sort of missing that band Chickenfoot." You know?
Yeah. You know, it's that band. We had such a wonderful time and such a compressed series of moments. You know, we had these short tours. We had these recording sessions where they would just be like 4 days of crazy recording, and then we wouldn't see each other for months as we went off and did our other things. And so they're like the memories are just so intense, and it would be great if after all this craziness is solved, that we could get back together again and do another album and a tour. That would be fantastic. So,
I mean, talking about albums and the new one, obviously Shapeshifting, I was thinking about this, and I'm sure you and everybody on your team have thought about this. What a timely title for an album title, Shapeshifting. I mean, I know it's got its genesis in another time, but now it is really like shapeshifting, right?
Yeah, I guess we all have to do it. I mean, you're right. When you get hit with adversity, the randomness, the chaos of life, you have to learn how to, bob and weave. You have to learn how to bend. You got to be like that reed in the wind and be flexible. I never in a million years thought about that. I mean, there are those times where people have unfortunate titles for artwork, music, just as a tragedy arrives, and that's always terrible. And I would never think about trying to capitalize on something like that. But
no, but you're right. I mean, look, when 9/11 happened in New York City, every song we played on the radio, a classic rock radio station, you would hear these lyrics, and they're like, oh, that really makes sense, but it has nothing to do with it. No matter what you do, there's going to be a tie-in somewhere, right? I mean,
there is, yeah. And especially with instrumental music, I mean, that's part of the design, is that the listener can, you know, ascribe their own meaning to the music, because there aren't lyrics, you know, forcing you to understand the artist's definition of the song's message. So as with every instrumental record I put out there, I realize that I'm giving it away, you know, emotionally. I'm letting go of the things that made me write those songs, and the personal stories behind them, and they become the fans. They put their meanings into them. So they may take a love song and turn it into a sad song, or they may take a sad song and turn it into a celebratory song. But that's their prerogative. They're allowed to do that. And
that's the beauty of what you do as a songwriter, though. You know, people can do whatever they want with the melodies that you create, you know?
Yeah. I'm always, you know, very cautious of that, and to make sure that I don't put too many notes in that melody, because it's the finite editing that really will touch people eventually. It's not throwing the whole bucket of water over their head, you know, it's just giving them just that right amount of music. And I think that's what really touches the heart, is that process of composing, of making sure that you don't overdo it. Of course, you don't want to underdo it, but because sometimes, you know, excess is wonderful.
Well, there's a song on the album that I've been playing on the show called 1980. When I saw the title of the song, I said, now that is interesting. And then I was sort of reading up on, you know, you and what you're doing in this new album and when it's coming out. And 1980 sort of references, I guess, the original sort of inspiration for this album, right?
Well, you know, there were lists and lists that you can't see them, but they were, you know, pinned up against these sound absorbing panels that are up in the studio here. And they were my reminders of the genesis of one idea, the kernel of another. As you said, what I was trying to sort of harken back to with some of the material, especially 1980, which really had to do with me finally expressing what had happened with me and my band, The Squares, back from 79 to 85.
I wanted to ask you that before you go on.
Okay.
What did you see The Squares as being musically? Like, what kind of band did you want them to be, and what kind of band did the other guys want them to be?
Oh, I think I was thinking, if I had to relate it to something that people would understand today, I would say if you could take you know, the original Van Halen and Green Day and kind of stick them together, I think that's what I was imagining. We just I couldn't figure out how to do it, but we tried, and in those years that we were able to make some demos, you could hear that, you know, it would lean a little bit more rock, a little bit more new wave, a little bit more punk, a little bit more retro, and then as we moved into the mid 80s, we even started to borrow from the Police or anybody that was doing something that we thought was cool, that might sort of energize and help crystallize what we were doing. But I know that's what I wanted to do. The other guys in the band really weren't into that exactly. We were three completely different guys. Andy Milton singing lead, playing bass, and Jeff Campitelli on drums. And we were different ages, had different influences, and it's what made the band good, but eventually it's also what broke us apart.
Right. So there's that song, and a great video for the song 1980. I think that pretty much like you guys are rehearsing, and then it's a performance thing. Was that Jim's studio? Is that where that was?
Yeah, well, I was really, you know, again, we were talking about how lucky we were that we had so much stuff sort of in the can before the end of the year. So
yeah,
we were out there doing the basics. This goes back to the beginning of September last year. My son Zizi came with his camera, and we've done a lot of work together. He did the Beyond the Supernova documentary.
That's right, yeah.
He came, and he was the fly on the wall, and he just sort of captured us. Just so happened he was there for a lot of the material that wound up being the group of songs that we were going to promote first. We didn't know that. We were just lucky. So we had a lot of that footage. And then he came up with this whole concept for doing 1980 later on, when the record was finished and the single was chosen, to shoot me in a warehouse in Burbank, I think it was, so we had a great time. So yeah, ZZ got to direct me once again, which is great, always a lot of fun. We had a great time with that one as well. And he was able to sort of, intersperse, because we didn't have the band together. That was the thing, is everyone was out working, doing something else. So it was just going to be me staring at the camera. But I had a great time. And we shot that in one long 16-hour day. And ZZ and his buddies were there putting up with me, the old man with the guitar.
Well, that song's great. 1980, we're playing that one. But, listening to the other tracks on the album, there actually are sort of some smooth, I don't want to say slow jams, because that's not what they're like, but they're sort of smooth, slower stuff that Satriani fans might, find really surprising. And there's even I think there's a reggae song on the album, right? Hear the Blue River?
That's right, yeah. Yeah,
it's really cool.
Oh, thank you. Well, keeping with the theme, the idea here was make the songs change me. Don't rewrite the songs to fit some sort of, image of the wild guitar player. Because, after you do a lot of albums and you're on stages for whatever, 40 plus years, you really don't want to get caught in the cage that you build for yourself, so you got to when you get home from that tour, you've got to tear down the cage and say, no cages, I got to start fresh. And so after touring with Kenny and Doug Pinnick on the Experience Hendrix tour last year, I was sort of rejuvenated during that whole period, because we were playing these beautiful Hendrix songs. They were both simple and yet so complex and so rich. And, every night we knew we could never be as good as Jimi, but the songs were like an invitation to really apply your love of music and expression. And so every time we'd finish a run, I'd get home and I'd look at all these songs and I thought, I should just let the songs change me and just keep writing in any style. So that's how we wound up with a song like 1980, right next to a song like Hear the Blue River, the reggae song that you mentioned. And the diversity on the album of the material actually fueled the sessions. I mean, every day, Chris Chaney, Kenny Aronoff would come so excited because they knew we'd have a different song in a different style and they could play differently. They wouldn't be repeating themselves. And I'd be saying to them, go for it, be different. And of course we had Jim Scott producing and engineering, and he's a master. And he was the director of ceremonies every day, kept us happy, told us when we were doing stuff good and when we were doing stuff bad. And we really had a great time.
Big Distortion, another song I've been playing from the new album on the show. Great track. I guess it's pretty self-explanatory, but I want to point out one part that I really love, and I love all the solos and everything and where the song goes and how it stops and restarts. But I love the Pete Townsend-ish, if you will, power chords in the middle of the song and then towards the end of the song. Just fantastic. And quite a nice surprise on the album. There is an acoustic guitar song and maybe some other acoustic instruments on it too. If there are, tell me what they are. And you are even whistling, I think, on this song.
Yeah, I know. That's the shocker, right? That's the shocker on that one. Well, I wrote that song like right there. I remember coming into my studio with an acoustic guitar. I had my foot up on this chair and I just started playing, and I just sort of instantly wrote this song, and it was a really upbeat, happy song. But it was about having kind of wistful, having reminiscing about great days, maybe a few days back or a few years back. And I quickly set up the Pro Tools and I just recorded a version of it really fast. And then I sat back and I listened to it, and again, you can't see all the notes that are pinned to the wall reminding me to let the songs change me. Don't try to change the song, into something that people expect. So I thought, okay, if this song was allowed to be itself. What would I want to do with it, And so eventually that idea led us to add the banjo, the marxophone, the anvil, Lisa Coleman on piano, Christopher Guest on mandolins.
Whoa.
And then the whistling, which is, I'm a terrible whistler, by the way. But
whistling's hard.
It is. and you can whistle when you're not thinking about it, but when the microphone's in front of you and you're hearing the sound of your breath and everything really up close, you at least me, I get self-conscious about it. And but luckily, when we did the whistling, I had Jim Scott standing to my left, who turned out to be a master whistler, and Eric Ogia, my keyboard player and editor, also turned out to be a master whistler. So I just kind of rode their wave, you know what I mean? I was in the middle, but I think I provided more breathy sounds than actual whistle tones, unfortunately. But
Joe Satriani is with us on the show. The new album is Shapeshifting, and next time he's in New York, obviously, we'll try and get him to come by the show. And the tour, I think, as you said, Joe, about a year from now, so the spring of 2021 or something, right?
That's our European schedule right now, I believe, is to start up exactly 12 months from now. And I'm not really sure about what's happening with the U.S. dates right now. I'm waiting to find out. Every hour, actually, we get more information. So
I want to do something with you, Joe, that we've been doing with some of the other guests on the show. It's a thing we call First Time.
Okay.
So it's pretty self-explanatory. I'll ask you a question and then you can just answer it. The first one is, what was the moment in your life that made you say to yourself, this is what I want to do, music, this is what I must do? If there was one sort of defining moment for you.
Oh, what comes to mind, like it was yesterday, I was in Vermont. I'm going to say close to Pulteney, Vermont, little town up there. I was with my family. I was really young. I got to say, wow. Well, you might be able to help me out with the date, but I'll explain it to you. We were dropping my older sisters off at a dance, and they let me walk into the dance hall for like a second. And I walked in there, and the band was playing Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. And I saw them playing it. Saxophone player was playing Keith's part, right?
Right.
And I'm looking at all the teenagers. When you're a little kid, you just want to be a teenager. So I'm looking at like these kids that I just wish I was them. And I'm looking at the band, and they're making this great music. I'm feeling the excitement, and I'm thinking, no, that's what I want to do. I want to be there. I want to do that. And then all of a sudden, my parents say, okay, you got to go. I must have been like 5 or something like that.
Right.
Whenever Satisfaction was out. And, but that moment stays with me. It's so exciting. It's a great memory.
The first guitar you ever bought?
Well, the first guitar that I ever really held, and once I decided to be a guitar player, my sister Carol purchased it for me, and that was a Hagstrom 3. And that came from Matthews Music in Roosevelt Field. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It's still there, right? Roosevelt Field in the...
I don't know, but I hope it is.
It was a teeny little mall back then. But then the first one that I actually got to purchase was a 68 Fender Telecaster. Someone had refinished it black, not too well. Put on a Bixby vibrato bar on it. And but what I remember most about that guitar is that was the one that I brought into Manhattan to 48th Street, where all the guitar stores were back then, and decided to get a new pickup put in that I'd heard about, that somebody from Staten Island was making. Turned out to be Larry DiMarzio himself. And so that's the first time that we met. We didn't know each other, and we didn't see each other again until 1987. But
wow.
I always connect that guitar to Larry building his very first humbucking souped up pickups that became the Super Distortion that launched the whole company.
What was the first song you learned to play on the guitar?
Oh man, that is a good question. That's so hard.
It wasn't Smoke on the Water?
No, I wasn't that good. I would have sounded
Roundabout?
magical alchemy at the time. It was probably something really, really simple. I mean, right before we got my sister bought me the electric guitar. My other sister, Marion, had an acoustic guitar because she was a folk guitarist for many years. And she lent me the guitar and said, you can use this while you're waiting for your real guitar. And inside was a magic chord sheet that had 17 chords in the first position, you know, if I can do that, just all these kinds of things, you know. Right. I just played, let's do the time warp again. I didn't mean to do that. That is so weird. Let's do the time warp again. Okay, so and so whatever songs sounded like those couple of chords, that's probably what I learned. But man, I'm gonna have to think hard about that. I want to know what that is, but I can't remember right now.
Satisfaction? Did you want to learn Satisfaction?
Yeah, but again, Satisfaction is a weird song because not one instrument plays the song.
You're right. You're right about that. Yeah.
The ensemble bit, the bass goes up to the fourth, and
it's really weird if you think about it.
It's an odd song.
Yeah.
And, but you know, it may have been Hey Joe, because Hey Joe is the same thing, right? Isn't it? Yeah. Probably I would have understood what that was. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a copyright problem, right? I'm not supposed to be.
No issues. No worries. The next first time question is this: the first rock idol you met where you said to yourself, I can't believe I'm speaking to.
Oh, yes. Oh my God. All right, let's go way back. Let's see. First.
That blew your mind, you know, like, I can't believe I'm talking to this guy or this girl or.
Yes. It's funny. I'm thinking like, that I actually didn't get to meet a lot of famous people. It's funny. I met a lot of people who became famous when I was in this disco band called Justice in the mid 70s. I remember doing a showcase with Blondie and the Bonsai Babies.
Wow.
And it was that Debbie Harry and Chris Stein, and they hadn't yet formed Blondie that we know, but they were Blondie and the Bonsai Babies. There were two other women singing and dancing in the band, but Chris was there. I don't remember who was playing bass and drums, but we were playing Brandy's. Was there a bar called Brandy's on 82nd in York or something like that, or somewhere around there?
Right. Yeah.
So, and a teeny little club, you know, at a teeny little stage, and showcases were a way that the clubs used to get as many bands as possible in to play for a short period of time and get them out, and they wouldn't pay us. But we were all looking for, you know, a 3-week engagement kind of thing. But I just remember standing there in this teeny club and talking with Chris and Debbie, and they were so cool. And like all of us, we're all innocent. We're all broke. We're all looking for work.
You're all kids.
And we're all kids, and we're all watching each other play going, oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe we should do that, and trading stories and tips and things like that. And of course, years later, when they become Blondie, I'm like, oh my God, you know, that's amazing. But it's proof that things can happen, you know, from the smallest situation, things can become global, and you can put your mind to it. But yeah, so I think about that. I guess that was my first brush with fame, but I didn't know it.
Fantastic. How about this? The first rock idol that gave you their phone number.
That'd be Brian May.
Wow.
Yeah. Brian May. First of all, if anybody out there knows Brian May, they know him to be the most amazing human being ever. He is just such an unbelievable person. Wonderful all the way down. Just an amazing heart, creative, smart, would do anything for you as a friend. And I think people know that. Just fans of Queen and Brian can feel that every night he steps out in front of 100,000 people. He has the ability to project that warmth, and he invites everybody in. But we, when I say we, I mean myself, Steve Vai, Betancourt, a whole bunch of other musicians got to hang out with Brian in '91 in London for a few days, rehearsing for the Guitar Legends Festival that was being held in Sevilla, Spain.
Oh man!
And then we did a concert we all flew to Sevilla and did that concert at the end of that week, and that was the beginning of a great friendship. So we are still communicating every other week, just goofy things, fun things, checking in on each other. And yes, he never changed his number.
That's great. He's very entertaining on Instagram as well.
Yes, yeah, he's
very creative.
You wouldn't think. I think if people who knew him years ago, you wouldn't think that he would be so natural and so funny on Instagram, and that was such a pleasant surprise. I'm not that kind of person. As soon as the work's done, I like being a little bit more private. But that's so part of, I think, Brian's nature, and it's completely natural, completely honest and heartfelt. I've just never seen him not be completely honest and open with everybody.
Do you love anybody that in the pop genre right now? Is there anyone that jumps out at you in the pop world?
I think last year when I was out touring, I did spend a lot, because when you're out touring, so much downtime, and I would spend some time finding out like what's happening outside my bubble of the Hendrix tour, because it is like a bubble. You just play Hendrix every night, and you're hanging out with all these great musicians, but we're all like living the Hendrix world, And so I'd say I got to find out what's happening in the pop world. That's what's making the world go crazy. And I have to say, I really love the Billie Eilish sound record. I didn't really pay attention to the lyrics. It's not my generation, obviously. So I thought, just from a musician's standpoint, what is this telling me? And I heard stuff that I really loved. I love the progressions. I love the harmony. The production was so fun to listen to.
Yeah, Phineas, her brother, is really good, right?
Amazing. And I think the last few times, a few months ago, when they were doing a couple of the award shows, I was completely knocked out, but wasn't surprised at how good they were live, just the two of them. It's just great singing, great playing, good performances. Every time I see that, I think this is great, because the world is in good hands. The new generation has come, and they can show up and they can do it, and they're good and they're original, and they're not, they're doing something different. They're pushing the boundaries of what pop music is, and I appreciate that greatly.
On the other side of the spectrum, rock or alternative, new bands that you may have recently discovered that you're really loving?
Last year, everyone was asking me about Greta Van Fleet, and wherever I went, people would ask me about that, like it was a controversial question or something like that. But I just remember always thinking, this sounds so great. Like I'm not having a negative reaction at any point. The band sounds great. The recording sounds good. Everyone is singing and playing great. Sounds like they like what they're doing. There's like nothing to complain about. And then when they would bring up, well, they're just copying this, I thought to myself, if you look at, let's say, the age of, the guys in Led Zeppelin and the age of the guys in Greta Van Fleet, there's such a huge gap in age there. And then you look back to Led Zeppelin when they were copying blues artists, and I mean really copying them.
Oh yeah, big time.
Big time. That age gap was teeny. They're taking music. I mean, I love what they did. So without casting aspersion, I'm saying they are paying homage to artists that are just 10 years older than they are, that came just a little bit before. Now, we're talking about Greta Van Fleet here.
They're like 20.
You know what I mean? I mean, the difference is that Led Zeppelin is like their grandparents' age. This is, you know, that would be like somebody criticizing me in a high school band if I was playing music from the 40s or something like that. It's
right,
like, I think musicians are allowed to dip back a little bit, right?
Sure.
And expand upon it. So I never ascribed to any of the negativity about that. I just think they're a great band. I think we should all let them grow. I mean, can you imagine where they're going to go? 4th, 5th album, it'll be amazing.
Joe Satriani, the new album Shapeshifting, on tour about a year from now, unless something amazing happens. But we look forward to that, especially to Joe, you coming to New York City. So listen, congrats on this great new album Shapeshifting. It really sounds great. Say hi to all the guys in the band, and we really enjoyed speaking with you tonight. So thank you so much. Stay safe. Wash your hands. You know the deal.
Yes. And we should say that to everybody else. And once again, it's so great to see your face, smiling, hear your voice. Thank you so very much for having me on the show.
This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.